There is a lot of content on YouTube that is centered around ways to spend less money and things to cut out of your budget. And today I wanted to share something a little bit different and share some things that I spend money on that I do not feel guilty about as a financially responsible girly. What makes me a financially responsible girly? Well, I have spent probably around the last 5 years really investing a lot of time and energy into learning about money and learning about how to manage my money. I really love investing as well, and I have a lot of information about my spending because I've been tracking every single thing that I spend money on for the past 5 years. I have these all in a Notion spreadsheet. I do have a very basic expense tracking template that I sell through Notion or on Notion. A Notion template, you get what I'm saying. I will link it in the description box. And I have spent a lot of time thinking about how I feel when I spend money and whether something feels like worth it to me or not. And I think that it's really important for us to know how to spend money because we have to spend it in order to live. And so we don't want to be feeling guilty about every single thing that we spend money on. And it's important to evaluate your feelings about, how you feel when you spend money on a certain thing versus another thing, and what is worth it to you and what is going to improve the quality of your life. And that is really important to me as someone who has her fair share of mental health, physical health struggles. Doing things that improve my quality of life is so worth it. I feel like it's so worth it for anyone, but particularly if you have things that are sort of obstacles to get to that optimal, content place in your life. I think a lot of us are caught up in the scarcity mindset of wanting to get as much money as possible and hoard it to ourselves. But learning how to spend money joyfully is, I think, a really important life skill. And I will say that this is coming from my personal position, and my personal position is a privileged position. I know that the cost of living right now is fucked up, and a lot of people are struggling, and I don't want to be insensitive to any of that because it is something that I think about all the time, and it really pains me. But this is just where I'm at personally, and some of these things that I share, if you are in credit card debt, this may not apply to you. Everyone is on their own different financial journey, and if this content is for you, you will know it's for you. And if it's not for you, I think it should be pretty obvious that there are probably things that you should be spending money on, like paying down debt or things like this, other than these things that I'm going to share. But I do think that sharing, ways that we can part with our money and it be sort of healthy and again joyful and an investment into yourself, especially as a woman, I think is empowering. So I just wanted to share some of mine. I did make a TikTok about this, which inspired me making this whole video so I could talk about it a little bit more. But before we get into it, I wanted to mention I have my matcha latte in my little croissant mug that I got from Anthropology. This went viral on TikTok. You've probably seen it, but cheers. Okay, so the very first thing that I spend money on that I don't feel guilty about is coffee or matcha out. I feel like this is a really controversial one because we've been fed the lie that if we buy coffees out or lattes out, that we won't be able to buy a house. And now I don't have a house, but I am working on getting a house. And I think that this is a way to, I don't know, just shame the girlies about their little treats. And again, if you're in debt, maybe going out for coffee every day isn't the move. But for me personally, I have always loved my coffee and matcha, and it's something that brings me a lot of joy. And sometimes you gotta pay $7 for a little joy, even though it looks like I made this at home because it's in a cup from home. I bought this out. I went for a little run and then I stopped at the coffee shop, got myself a matcha latte, and it's really bringing some joy to my day, and that to me is always gonna be worth it. And it's just a personal decision that even if I bought myself a coffee every single day, I sort of tallied up how much that would cost. And yes, it's an astronomical number for coffee that you can make at home, but to me, it's worth it. I will look at that annual number in the face and go, yep, I'm gonna continue to do that. I think that's a really good test of whether or not you're comfortable with certain costs. If you on average spend $500 on new clothes, which Sometimes that can be me, not all the time, but multiply that number by 12. So that's $6,000. Look that number in the face and ask yourself, am I comfortable with that number? And you can kind of see where you're feeling. And it's usually not going to be like a full yes or full no. You might be somewhere in the middle, but it's a way to kind of gauge how you're feeling about your spending, because on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, it might not seem like that much money. On a yearly basis, you're really going to see what that like financial impact is. And again, it's one that like I feel okay with. And so moving on. Another thing that I spend money on guilt-free is workout clothes. And this is because I believe that health is wealth and I will always invest in my health. And it may seem frivolous, it may seem vain to want new clothes to work out in, but in the current life stage that I'm in, I'm rebuilding some of my healthy habits, and whatever I can do to make that a little bit easier and a little bit more enjoyable for myself, I will do. And one of those things is having clothes that not only work from like a technical perspective, but make me feel good and confident in, and even just like having some fun colors and kind of just making it a little bit more fun has really helped me kind of get more exercise. And so I'm cool with it. Again, I kind of looked at my budget and what this would cost me in a full year, and it's a cost that I'm comfortable with. At the end of the day, I would spend an ungodly amount of money for my health, and that is, you know, just a personal decision for me. And I put workout clothes in here and not like, oh, a gym membership and blah, blah, because I feel like most people would know or would feel that like that is worth it to them, you know, like a gym membership is like, you know, objectively a good idea unless you're getting an absurdly expensive one, but most people would agree that that is like a good move even financially, because again, health is wealth. But I put workout clothes in because I think that one's like a little controversial, because you can pretty much work out in anything, but you can't work out in just anything and feel comfortable and confident and have it work in the way that it needs to. So one of those things is I've been buying some Arc'teryx clothing, and it's fantastic. I will say my boyfriend works there, so I get a little bit of a discount, but they're like investing in quality stuff. I've never really had clothes of that like high of quality, and it's a game changer, let me tell you. The next thing that I spend money on guilt-free is getting takeout, probably a couple times a month. I will say that we used to spend a lot more money on delivery, and I can't really tell you why we've cut down a lot, mainly just because we felt like we're spending a lot of money. It's not like, it's usually not the healthiest, and we just wanted to cut down. And so we did. And I would say like we used to get it maybe once a week, maybe sometimes a couple times a week. But now I would say we often go weeks without getting takeout, but consistently we get it 2 to 3 times. And when I say like takeout, I'm really talking about like getting that Uber Eats or that Skip the Dishes. And the reason why I spend on this, you know, guilt-free is, number one, we've cut down significantly. So we used to spend a lot more, and that was feeling uncomfortable to us. So we cut down to a level that feels comfortable to us, and that is like the sweet spot. Cooking for yourself every day is really hard, and sometimes it's nice to relieve that pressure, and it's also fun, you know. We're like, you know, want to get sushi, so some of the meals that we get often, sushi, shawarma. Sometimes I like to order salads for lunch from this one salad place. I will say we're a big McDonald's family, so sometimes we'll get McDonald's, and yeah, I basically just treat it as like, you know, even though the delivery fees and the taxes and the tips and everything, it makes it a lot more expensive than if you're going out. It's just sort of like a tool to help you, again, kind of relieve some of that pressure of needing to cook and feed yourself every day, because that's a lot. On top of everything else in your life that you have to deal with, that's a lot. We try and keep it reasonable. We're not getting takeout from places that are like, you know, nicer restaurants. I mean, if it was kind of a nicer restaurant, my preference would be to go into the restaurant and experience the atmosphere and the service in addition to the food. So we're getting like, you know, fast casual, but that is something that I do not feel guilty spending money on. The next thing that I do not feel guilty spending money on is books. So I am a huge library girly. I have always loved the library. I think the library is such a fantastic thing. Where I live, you can get a library card for free. And so you can basically take out unlimited books for free, which I think is just the most incredible thing. I think it's so important to give people access to books, to education, to entertainment, to inspiration. And the library is such a good way to do that. So I honestly take out most of my books from the library, which is just the best. And I will often take out like 7-day holds where you can get like popular books and you can take it out for 7 days, and I just read it quickly so that I can get it from the library. I do have a book podcast called Easy Reads, and we read a book a month with a guest, and the guest picks the book. And often I'm not able to get that book from the library, so I will usually purchase that book. And of course, I do not feel guilty about that. It has a very specific purpose, and I'm happy to do one book a month for that. On top of that, if there are books, particularly self-help books or books that are more like reference material, I do not feel guilty spending money on it at all. So a book that I recently purchased was The Untethered Soul, and it was fantastic, and it's a book that I was wanting to read for a long time, and it felt like the right time, so I did purchase it. And yeah, I just like truly will never feel guilty buying a book, because books are, like I said, such a great tool for education, entertainment, inspiration. Like books to me is like a big part of what makes life so rich, and so I would never deny myself that. Again, if I think about how many books I actually end up buying because I use the library so frequently, it's not a huge number, so I'm perfectly comfortable with it. And yeah, you'll just never catch me feeling guilty about that. The next thing that I spend money on that I do not feel guilty about is celebratory meals out. So story time, definitely used to go out to restaurants a lot more. I'm a foodie, and you know, my idea of like going out is like going to a nice meal, not necessarily like going to the club. I mean, we had those days, but I'm club retired. But I love trying new restaurants. I love experiencing new food. To me, it's just like the best thing ever. Looking at a menu beforehand, kind of having an idea of what you want, getting to the restaurant. You know, my boyfriend always knows exactly when he looks at the menu what I'm gonna want to order, because he knows my taste. And we order, have a nice time, have a couple courses. I just love the whole experience of it. And we used to go to a lot more, I would say, because I feel like prices were just like more affordable. And now I feel like you can't really go out for a nice meal for under $100, and that adds up really quickly. So now we definitely go out for celebratory meals. So birthdays, anniversary, you know, getting a new job, things like that. And that works for me, and that works for us. And again, it makes it a little bit more special when you don't do it as frequently. And I will say, like, sometimes when I go out to a restaurant, I can't even really enjoy it, because I'm like looking at the number beside the thing that we're ordering, and I'm kind of like tallying it up in my head, or at least I used to do this a lot more. I still catch myself doing it, but I've tried to let go of that, because okay, if we're going out for one celebratory meal a month or every couple of months, we can sort of order what we want. And that was one thing that my boyfriend Mac and I had to kind of come together on, is like, you know, if we're going to eat out, if we're going to spend this money, we should enjoy it and not feel guilty about it. And I used to feel not guilty, but I was just, again, always anticipating the bill, and it took away from our experience. So that is something that now when we go out, I don't feel guilty about it. My camera overheated, so it might be a little bit of a different angle. It's really hot in here, so if you see me glistening, just know that that's sweat. Okay, so the last thing that I do not feel guilty spending my money on is covering my gray hair. I have a little bit of root spray in right now, so it might not be as noticeable, but I'll show you what I'm talking about. This is my gray grow out. So I am 31, turning 32 in just a couple of months, and I've been getting gray hair since I was like probably 25. And I knew that this would happen because my mom said she started dyeing her hair at 28. And I will say I went to 31 before dyeing it, but it was bothering me for so many years before that. And I actually don't know why I didn't start dyeing it sooner. And everyone's experience is totally unique, and if you want to rock your gray hair, that's awesome. I think I will eventually when I'm like 60, 70, just not yet, you know? I'm just not ready for that yet. And ever since I started getting them covered up, which has been maybe 3 months now, 4 months now, I cannot see myself turning back. It helps my confidence so much. I've been pretty much going like once a month because my hair does grow really fast. You can tell I've got a lot of it, and it grows like a weed. And so my gray is really popping usually, but you can also see that my hair is a lot more like rich and like warmer than it used to be, and that's just like the color that she's been using, and I love it. So not only do I get my grays covered up, and that like eliminates a pretty big insecurity of mine, I also feel like it improved the overall look of my hair, because my natural color was pretty like washed out, and because of the gray too, it just made it look really cool toned and really flat. And so yeah, it just really did it for me. I found a really amazing hairstylist, and my root touch-up actually is pretty affordable. It actually cost me only like, I think like $60 or $65, which if you are a woman, you get your hair colored, you know that that is a good price. So do your research, find someone. You know, my advice would be don't go to the fanciest salon in your town. Like in your town, what am I live in a city. I used to go to those like aesthetic bougie places, and then I realized that my hair is actually quite like simple to cut and even to color, and so I didn't really like need, I don't know, I don't even know if the hairstylists in those places are even better than other ones, but I just mean like you don't have to go to like the nicest salon. Just find a hairstylist that you like. I'm really happy that I found mine, and she works in one of those spaces where you kind of like rent a little room, and so she's like an independent stylist, and I just have found that that works really well. And I also love it because you have like your own private space, and so you're not in the salon with other people, which sometimes as an introvert I find really intimidating. And so I like that I get to just like go in, it's just her and I, and we get to just chit chat while, you know, she's getting my roots touched up, and I'm gonna do this probably for the rest of my life, and I don't feel guilty about that at all, and it's an expense that I am truly happy to pay for. So those are all of the things that I spend money on. I mean, not all of the things. There are certainly so many others, and so if you want a part 2, I would be happy to film it, but I am dying to know if you have, like, if we share any of these, or if we don't, like, tell me something that you spend money on that you don't feel guilty about. I would love to know. Maybe you can give me some ideas in the comments. So I hope that you enjoyed this one. If you are not subscribed to my channel, I would love to have you. And if you are subscribed, you know that I love you. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in my next one. Bye.